The following is a presentation of the Chicago Bears Network and ChicagoBears.com. Download the Chicago Bears official mobile app for up-to-the-minute Bears content every day. And now, welcome to Bears All Access, your all-access pass into Chicago Bears football. Bears All Access is brought to you by IGS Energy and sponsored by Athletico Physical Therapy and CDW.
Hey, good evening, Bears fans. We're talking Bears football as the draft approaches. I'm Jeff Joniak here on Bears All Access on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. My broadcast partner from News Radio 105.9, Mr. Tom Thayer. We're brought to you by IGS Energy. Coming up in our next segment, our weekly guest, Jim Miller. We're starting off the week early this week, big time. We got Cubs baseball. We got Bulls basketball later this weekend. So getting right at it after what we have. Thursday show last week, Friday show. I don't know. They're all coming together, but there's plenty to talk about, believe me.
Yeah, there is. You know, and every day something seems to change in the NFL, whether it's looking forward to the draft or the trades that are becoming available, the different type of evaluations you get on certain players, whether they're climbing the ladder or they're falling as the draft approaches. But I got to say it, I don't think there's anything more significant than saying something about Dwayne Haskins and the unfortunate passing Saturday morning. Because I remember when this young kid came out of college, you know, Jeff, I saw Dwayne Haskins throw those 50 touchdown passes, and I really thought it was the next coming of a guy like Dan Marino. Big, strong, sturdy in the pocket, had accuracy, was able to throw it. Out there working in the offseason, trying to, work with the rest of his teammates and get ready for the Steelers training camp. So, you know, you wake up on a Saturday morning, you sit there, you turn on the TV, and that's not what you expect, but just super, super unfortunate what happened to that young man. And for his family, for his teammates, for the organization, it's hard not to think about those types of things that happen because, you know, Jeff, we're surrounded by NFL players. And each one of these guys throughout the course of our lives and our career, you know, they hold some type of special spot because we talk about them, we compare them, and they just mean a lot to our position and our job.
Condolences to his family. The video of when he was a little kid at 11 showing up at Ohio State, telling his dad he's going to come to college here, and he lived out that part of his dream and made it to the National Football. He was going to compete for a starting job in Pittsburgh and compete for a spot on that roster again this year. And anymore. Well, you brought that one to my attention on Saturday morning with a text, and you and I exchanged texts about a lot of bad things, you know, death of former teammates or health conditions of others around this league because you've been around it your entire life, and I've been around it now for 3+ decades. So it's we know a lot of people now in the league. So
right, you know, when you see that video of Haskins as a young kid and already determining where he's going to go and what he wants to be. I know I sent a picture of you when I was 9 years old. At the first trophy I ever got was pass, punt, and kick. And I think whenever you're a young athlete and you kind of choose the sport you're gonna follow that path. You know, when you're a football player, everybody dreams about being a quarterback. And I had the same dream when I was 9 years old, and nothing could change quicker in my life because when Gordy Gillespie came up to me as a freshman and said, "Son, this position is not in your future. You're going to get a 70 number, and you're going to be an offensive lineman here and probably for the remainder of your career." So the different dreams that we all live through when we choose sports as our goal in life, it's incredible what journeys we take throughout.
Well, you got to give me some credit because I accurately picked you out in that picture with all the other pass, punt, and kick finalists, and I only knew it because you had a nasty look on your face. You already were chomping on steel and spitting out nails. I mean, right? I mean, you weren't smiling. You had this really nasty. You were 9 years old, and it served you well up until your 60s.
You know, I don't know why. So recently we had some water in the basement, and I just came across the picture. That's why I even sent it to you. And everybody that I sent it out to, nobody picked that.
Except for me.
That was me, yeah, except for you. And so I don't know why I have that expression on my face, but I remember when they called, you know, the phone rings on the wall, you pick up the phone, and they announce, hey, you won the pass, punt, and kick competition when you're 9 years old, and that was my first trophy. I still have that trophy. And when I look back at that picture and I think of the events over the weekend, it's incredible the journeys that you think you're going to take, but when you never throw a football in any game that you ever play in your life because you eat yourself into being an offensive lineman like I did.
Well, you grew. You had God-given size, my friend, and the strength you worked on. There's no question about that. Another guy that's worked on his body and strength, and we'll be excited to talk to him here at the bottom of the hour, is new defensive tackle Justin Jones.
Yep.
He's excited about being a Bear. Roster, Tom, right now, at my count, I believe 59 players, and it's the fewest in the league at this point. So that does tell you a couple of things. The Bears do have 6 picks. They're going to, no doubt, have a bunch of undrafted players in here as well. So they're going to work that angle of it. This is a team that wants to be built through the draft. That was the stated goal by Ryan Poles. And then these one-year contracts. There's still some deals to be made out there because you really could go up and down the roster and add anybody. This week alone, they've added, since we last did the show, Ryan Griffin, the 32-year-old veteran tight end with Houston and the Jets. Sounds like a gritty guy, 6'6", 255. Has caught the ball, has caught touchdowns. 1 year he had 5 touchdown catches. Then Matt Adams, a special teams guy, former 7th-round pick with Houston, 58 games in the league, only 1 snap on defense last year in Indianapolis. But he's aboard. And then officially today, Tavon Young, because, Tom, a guy who played nickel corner in Baltimore since 2016, he did have a couple of ACLs, and he also had another injury, the neck injury, that knocked him out all of 2019. But that's not unusual for that position. That nickel spot takes a pounding, much like tight ends take a pounding. As you always used to say, most man hours lost at any spot is the tight end position. Nickel might be there as well. So, but he's experienced. He's a gritty guy from that Baltimore mentality of defense. We know what that's been like over the years. So some of the additions this week, what are your thoughts?
You just think of the last couple of years. They had Buster Screen a couple of years ago, and I think he left a good impression on all of us. However, he got injured at the end of his time with the Bears, and then he was able to move on, thankfully. And then you think of the rotation of that, how many people played that position last year. And
how about Bryce Callahan before that?
Yeah.
Still, he's a guy
he was injured a lot too, but I think if you can really, get a player that solidifies that position, I think the importance of it is as important as any starting position. Basically, is a starting position, but is as important as any position up and down the roster.
No question. That is an understatement these days with the way the offenses have gone. That position is one of the more difficult ones. You got to know everybody's responsibility and your own, and you got to be willing to tackle in the run game. You got to have some feistiness. You're going to be dealing with size. You're going to be dealing with diminutive, quick guys. So very important position indeed. All right, we're going to take our first break. Our producer tonight is the one and only Tyler Buterbaugh. I asked him for a pronunciation guide just in case, but I think I nailed it. He is our producer tonight. Thanks as well to Katie Tuber this week. This is Bears All Access. Coming up next, Jim Miller joins the program on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Pleasant Monday evening, everybody. Great weather today in Chicago. Hopefully it remains that way for the White Sox opener tomorrow. And warm weather. Greet everybody. Keep the rain away. Get it going. Jeff Joniak, Tom Thayer, back on Bears All Access. And we welcome in our weekly guest from SiriusXM NFL Radio's Moving the Chains with Pat Kerman. He is Bears quarterback Jim Miller. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing
back
great,
with us.
Jeff, Tom. Good to be with you guys tonight.
Good to be with you, too. But, Jim, I don't know if you're a working man all day, so you've been on the air all day. I don't know if you had a chance. I thought I was seeing things today because on the Bears Twitter feed, I saw my broadcast partner, Jim Tom Thayer, on a puppy play date with Lauren Screeden from, I don't know if you saw it. It's a whole feature. I watched it over and over again because all I've heard about for the past 6 to 8 months is how he's just dog sitting. That's what he's doing. And I saw it firsthand, Jim. There's proof. Everybody check it out. Lauren did a great job. She brought her dog, and they had a puppy play date at Tom's house.
And Tom was just carrying around the pooper scooper? What was going on, Tom? I mean, what was going on with that? Well, that's good to know.
Jim, if you watch it close, you see at one time Lauren reaches in her back pocket and hands me a bag, because it's not a life of a poop. Your hand is your pooper scooper, and it's bags that you have on you that I never leave home without them when I have the dogs with me. And I got 3 dogs. I got Ernie, who's an old man at 10 years old. I got Sweet Lou, who was born last July, and then I got Rudy, who was born in October. So I got
great.
a couple of guys that they can do it at the drop of a hat.
Well, Ernie used to have his own web page, own Facebook page, so I don't know if you got all 3 doing that, but these are commercial possibilities, Tom.
Well,
you could be making money on the side here with the dogs, right, Jim?
Well, I need my youngest 2 boys. They want a dog again. All right, we did not scout our first pet very well at all. Okay, so my wife ended up getting an Italian Greyhound bred with what's it called? Anyway, it would basically, I requested my wife, just get a domesticated dog that we can train. Okay, and that's not what happened. Italian Greyhounds, as we know, are very hyper, and it was running around the house like a bandit, where it became just we couldn't have it anymore. So we're going to dive into it again, but I'm going to need Tom to help me scout to get a good dog. So this time we can do it right for the second time.
You guys need to get on the phone with each other. You guys hash it up, because Tom is the modern day dog whisperer. He studies this thing. He reads books on it. He's showing me right now on a Zoom. We're on a Zoom. He's got the Dog Father T-shirt. It's black and silver, the Dog Father.
Well,
that's what he is.
This
is what he does now. He used to be a surf. Jim, he used to surf. He used to play beach volleyball. Now he babysits dogs.
Well, hey, you got to have a hobby, and it sounds like a good one. But I got to hit you up, Tom. We got to do it right here the second time in the Miller household.
My advice to anybody that's getting a dog is you have to take it to some type of puppy school, because the better you train your dog, the easier it is to have an existence with them. And that's why I have been raising these 2 dogs, and Ernie, the oldest one, helps me do a lot of things by example. And so I know people don't want to listen to this.
No, they don't. But you got a future, the TNT Puppy School by Tom Thayer.
Hey,
there you go.
I'll teach you how to do their nails, brush their teeth, everything.
Oh, my gosh. All right, well, great job by Lauren Screeden, and
Yes.
I hope you gave her lunch or something on the visit for the puppy play date. Did you? Did you make her something good?
The whole film crew and Lauren went over to the restaurant and had a good meal supplied to them.
Very good, very good.
Yes.
Big Jim, what's your day been like? New week begins as we tick down, 17 days until the NFL draft. Now, obviously, the Bears don't have a first-round pick unless they make some sort of move. I don't anticipate that up into the first round, but they do have 2 second-rounders. But just from a national perspective, as you look at the top 10 or top 20, are guys falling into places, or are there going to be surprises? Because some of these draftnicks out there are shoving quarterbacks now way up the ladder. What's your take on it? What's your feel? Is this going to be a chalk draft, or is it going to be a surprising one?
Yeah, I still think, there's doubts about, for Hutchinson to be the first overall selection, or is it going to be Walker or even Neal, the big tackle from Alabama, and some like Ekwonu, the NC State tackle. It was brought up on our airwaves today. People forget he's going to be a guard in the NFL, but Jamari Sawyer, they put Georgia. He was a left tackle at Georgia, but he's probably going to kick into guard. He shut out Aiden Hutchinson. So I still think, there's a question mark of who truly is the number 1 overall player in this draft, and while they'll be selected. I think you see in the news today there's a lot of players on the move. From Aiden Hutchinson, I think he's visiting with teams. I think he's visiting with the Jets and the Giants this week. Kayvon Thibodeau, the Oregon pass rusher, he's visiting with the Lions, Jets, and Giants. And that's what these visits are for the listeners out there. And it doesn't preclude the Bears, too. Just because the Bears don't pick in the first round, you may, if the Bears did have their draft pick, they may want to bring in a player or 2 that they target, because those players ultimately are going to have, potentially their 5th-year options, where the Bears will have an opportunity to, down the line, to have that player join their football team. So it doesn't stop you from bringing in a first-round pick, even though these visits, typically tell you what they're going to do. But you bring in these guys for these visits to, one, get all the scouting things cleared up. Say if there's off-the-field issues, get them cleared up. If there's a medical issue, get them cleared up. And that's what these 30 visits are for. But it doesn't necessarily mean that a first-round draft pick isn't brought into the Bears. I mean, Bill Belichick did a ton of that. I'd never forget this because Mike Vrabel, who's now the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, Bill Belichick loved Mike Vrabel coming out in the draft. He goes, with just when they had their visit, just where you're going to fall in the draft, we'll never have a shot at you. But, you never know down the line. I may add you to our team. And sure enough, Mike Vrabel ended up as a pretty good, darn good New England Patriot football player. So there's all those things that are going on. Teams are starting to shore up their draft boards. I don't want to say the hay's in the barn because it's never in the barn. You're still going to have medical and other information that's coming in, but pretty much everybody's starting to get their board set of what they're going to do. But last thing that you touched on in terms of the quarterbacks, I'm not buying that there's 5 quarterbacks that are going in the first round. I think you do like the 5th-year option, but and I mean this to no disrespect. I think Kenny Pickett, I think Willis, I think potentially Ritter may have a shot, say for the Lions at 32 from that standpoint. But I just, I don't know if these guys are difference makers from that standpoint. They may develop into difference makers, but not right now. There's only 2 of those guys that have over 30 starts, and that's Ritter and that's Pickett. I mean this is no disrespect to Willis because he transferred from Auburn down to Liberty. He doesn't have any touchdowns versus Power 5 teams or the big teams that he played, and he's a raw player that needs to be developed. His skill set suggests he is a first-round talent because he has a big arm and he can run. He's very athletic from that standpoint. So I do think he'll go in the first round, but he's a developmental player that you really don't want to get on the field his first year in the NFL.
Tom, I would not have any problem having a tackle, the number 1 overall pick, because I'm at the point now and you can't have enough. You just can't have enough on your offensive line, and you're trying to get 5 really good pieces of granite up there. So Evan Neal and Ike Ekwonu are guys that I would totally be comfortable with at the top of the draft.
Oh, so would I. But, you have to wonder, because there's so much inexperience in this year's war room, because the amount of new head coaches there are making choices with new GMs and stuff. And so are they enamored with position players and speed that's all they're looking at? But I think when you look at the centerpiece of a football team, a lot of times a left tackle, if it's not a bona fide star quarterback that just has Hall of Fame in his future, which is always undetermined, if you have that offensive tackle, that special guy that's come across the board, year in and year out throughout the draft, I would have no problem, and I would be happy to pick that guy and try to see can I get that guy right now that's going to be line up in that same position for me for 10 years. If you go out and you find that, if you're a new coach or you're an experienced coach in an experienced system, I think that could be your centerpiece in the beginning of an all-star offensive line.
We need to take our break. It's Tom Thayer along with Jim Miller from Sirius XM NFL Radio. I'm Jeff Joniak. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we're joined by one of the new Bears, defensive tackle Justin Jones. This is Bears All Access on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Bears All Access. It's brought to you by IGS Energy. Choose clean energy for your home at IGS.com because every good choice adds up to a better world. With Tom Thayer, Jeff Joniak, and former Bears quarterback Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio's Moving the Chains. Let's talk about the tight end position. Bears adding a tight end this past week, Ryan Griffin, and reportedly looking at another one, James O'Shaughnessy on the free agent market, the Naperville North and Illinois State product. But Cole Kmet in a big year 3, Tom, a critical piece to the Bears offense. On your expectations, obviously we're looking for a big bounce statistically.
Yeah, when Cole first came aboard, when he was drafted out of Notre Dame in the 2nd round, I always said until Cole can become a reliable blocker, it's going to be difficult for him to get on the field. And I think he is a reliable blocker, but I think he's only going to have to increase his value at that position. But then when you look at this offense and what Jimmy Graham has provided, when he was on the field in the red zone, he had to get respectful coverage. They had to kind of design a plan around him because he used his body so well. I think Cole coming into the season, let's just talk about the red zone and forget the rest of the field. I think the red zone, he has to be one of their primary targets. He has to be a guy that it gets minimum of 5 touchdowns and beyond, because if he's going to complement the rest of the players who are out there in the red zone, and because Graham is gone, I expect his role, his reps in the red zone to increase. So Cole has got a lot of pressure on him this year in terms of what he's shown that he can be. He has run after the catch, but what Jimmy Graham did in terms of the touchdowns that he was able to get in the red zone, Cole has to pick up every single one of those catches for touchdowns.
Hey, Jim, what were your relationships with tight end as a quarterback in terms of your vision? And obviously play calls dictated a lot going through your progressions or not, but, I mean, did they just pop for you?
Yeah, I think in Gary Croton's offense, they were featured quite a bit. We had a lot of Y shallow stuff and Y option stuff that was in there, and Ryan Wetnight was really good at that. And, God rest his soul, because Ryan has passed away, but he was very integral when we were switching over to that style of offense. Then we switched over to John Shoop's offense, which we kind of needed more blocking. There was more run game involved from that standpoint. We kind of went away from that type of stuff. So Big Fred, stepped in there and did a lot of blocking from that standpoint.
Fred Baxter?
Yeah, Fred Baxter was just devastating from that standpoint. We ran a lot of duo and double teams and things like that, where Fred had to really clean it up on the outside. We kind of went to more of a 3-wide set where we featured the receivers, and there was more demand for the tight end blocking. But I think for Tom, the point Tom's just talking about, I just think, when you look at Luke Getsy's offense, can Cole Kmet be somewhere where Robert Tonyan is? Because Robert Tonyan, before he went down to the injury, was a crucial part of Green Bay's offense. He had 11 touchdowns in 2020. So I'm with Tom. I want to see a tight end needs to be a young quarterback's best friend along with the run game. And I would think that Cole needs to be in that type of area, 8 to 10 touchdowns, something like that, where he's a big part of the red zone offense for the Chicago Bears.
Jim and Jeff, if we're talking about players having a clean slate with the new coaching staff, Jesper Horsted, he has really good hands, and he showed in the preseason and a couple catches in the regular season, the Vegas game, that he has the ability to be a receiver. So if you think of a Robert Tonyan type of guy and his development with the quarterback in that type of system, I think Jesper could be that type of guy also, where, you just want, Cole is, he's a high-profile, high-drafted kid that, he has to come in and he has to supply what the tight end needs. But I do think that with these new coaches coming aboard with Jesper, it's going to be interesting to see how they evaluate his hand ability when they put him out on the offense.
Yeah, Tonyan, two touchdown catches in his first 2 years of minimal catches, then ballooned to the 52, and then 11 touchdowns. And before his injury last year, 18 catches for 11-3, a grab and 2 touchdowns for the Packers, the kid out of McHenry East High School. All right, we're going to step away, another break. When we come back, we'll be joined by veteran defensive tackle and new Chicago Bear, Justin Jones. He'll be our guest here on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. This segment of Bears All Access is brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an appointment in clinic or virtually and start feeling better tomorrow. With Tom Thayer, Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio is moving the chains. I'm Jeff Joniak here on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score, and pleased to be joined by one of the newer Bears, Justin Jones, the veteran defensive tackle, joined the program. Justin, good evening. Hope your day's going well, and thanks for taking the time, my friend.
How you doing? Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. Wearing number 93 in navy blue. I know you're excited because I checked out your Twitter feed, and that's at 20, spell it out, 7 Savage on Twitter. I will get into why that's your handle. But yesterday, I think you posted Bears facility top notch, holy blank. Why you like it so much?
It's just, from where I came from versus to where I'm at, the facility is just, like night and day. Like I feel like I just got drafted again, going into the facility because just of how big it is and all the things we have, accessible to us. Float tanks, saunas, steam rooms, the weight room's 2 floors, like the indoor turf facility, the 4 or 5 fields, and the Walter Payton indoor, like that thing is amazing. Like the whole facility is amazing.
Yeah, that makes you want to go to work every day, right? No question.
Makes you want to go to work every day. Not to mention the Super Bowl trophy.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In the main entrance, man. Like it's literally like motivation as soon as you walk through the doors.
I saw a video of you when you came to the building, and I saw you staring at that thing. I saw you staring at the Lombardi Trophy.
Oh, man, you got to get my hands on one of those, man. Oh, my gosh.
Well, let me introduce you to Tom Thayer because you haven't met him yet, who played on that 85 Super Bowl team as a starting guard for the world champion Bears, so he could tell you more about that trophy than I can.
Oh,
there.
for sure. I definitely have some questions.
Hey, Justin, it's nice to meet you. Congratulations on coming to Chicago, and excited to have you. So, Justin, when you look at your career, you've been through a couple different coaching changes. When you go through coaching changes, does the position coach, the head coach, and the style of defense, do they just try to improve the style of play that you're bringing aboard? Or are there specific types of techniques that they try to add to your arsenal or, try to get you in the most explosive position you can be in?
Well, it just depends on what the defense is calling for. Like, just sometimes, in the game of football, like you have to do things that maybe aren't to your strengths, but it'll help the team win at the time. And that's as a team player and as a team guy, that's something that you just have to do. And that's something I won't blink an eye at. That's something I do, like, just because I have to do it. I'm not going to, not do it to the best of my abilities. Like I'm trying to help the team win. So that's my number one goal. So, but it makes sense. Like for me, it's not all about, it's not all about, being always in the best position. Sometimes it might be to put somebody else in position so they can make a play, or it might be a certain way I have to play it so that we can, we can contain or run better, or just or even in the passing game, I might have to cover somebody up, or if I got the one-on-one. So it's just a matter of what's called for that week in our particular defense. So it's just sometimes it's good for me, sometimes it's not. But if we win, it doesn't even matter to me.
Justin, as an ex-offensive lineman, you kind of live through video. You watch a lot of tape. And you being in the AFC for your career, are you familiar with the NFC offensive lines that you'll face, or even some of the offensive thinking process that they go through within this division? I
am. I'm more familiar, obviously, where I came from. But obviously out here where we're at now, it's a run first conference. It's that real blue collar, nose to nose football, and that's why I like to play. It shows the real toughness. I feel like where I was at on the West Coast is more of that, smoke and mirrors and finesse. Whereas on this side of the NFC, man, it's that ground and pound, and you're bringing your hard head to work that day.
Well, Justin, Jim Miller, again, welcome aboard. Welcome to Chicago. And, it's just unfortunately for you, you've had, a couple of health concerns where you haven't been able to go the entire season. So, one, how was your health? What have you been doing? Because, injuries happen. I mean, I'm the perfect example of it. When I played in Chicago, I got hurt a little too much. But for you to stay healthy for the availability for an entire year, I know it's got to be a big thing that's on your mind with what you'll be able to do moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. Whenever you step between the lines, there's always a possibility that you can be injured. There's a possibility that things, don't go your way and you can get folded up on, like things you just can't control, but all you can do, is stay flexible, make sure you're in the best condition, make sure you're stronger, faster, make sure, you can withstand the duration of the season. And obviously, and just hope, things don't fall on you or fall, in your way, and that you can evolve, you can evade or, get around certain things that, obviously to protect yourself. And, for me, like I said, now it's just more so just, like I said, staying flexible, staying strong, being smart, really understanding the defense, my fit and, how I can help the team win, man. And then obviously knowing the playbook inside and out so you can put yourself in position to make plays and, avoid some injuries as well.
Well, what intrigued you about Chicago? It sounds like, loving the facilities and all that is good and enjoying to go to work. That's a big part of it that people don't understand. You got to enjoy where you're at. But what intrigued you about joining the Chicago Bears?
Well, Coach Flus, coming from the coast and everything, and the way the style of defense that they played, obviously, with DeForest Buckner, the 3 technique, and, having Quan out there in, just seeing how they play, I fit into the scheme and what he's trying to accomplish over here pretty well, and that got me excited because, I come from that penetrating 3 technique defense, leaving NC State, and, it's kind of just getting back to my roots. Back where I came from, back when, I played in that D-line, with Kentavia Street, B.J. Hill, and Bradley Chubb. And, that really got me excited because that's kind of my, I guess, my true introduction to football, if that makes sense.
Justin Jones, our guest here on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. This is Bears All Access with Jim Miller and Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak. Talk more about that Penn State thing because, Bradley Chubb, B.J. Hill got himself in a Super Bowl here, Kentavia Street, and Justin Jones, all drafted in the first 4 rounds of that year in 2018. You were a 3rd rounder. That's rare, first of all, that all 4 of you guys must have been monsters. And at that time, if I'm not mistaken, you were probably tipping the scales around 318. You're not that now, right?
No, I'm not. You said you had Penn State, NC State.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say Penn State?
Yeah.
Yes,
oh,
you
my
did.
my mistake. NC State. But because you've had to remake your body a little bit based on how you felt and how you were being blocked and so forth by other guys.
Facts. So when I got in college, me being heavy like that was good. Getting good knockback. You know what I'm saying, and stuffing the run and, rushing the pass and stuff like that, being that big, it's acceptable. When you get to the league, guys are a lot faster, a lot stronger. They're vets at their job, real crafty with their hands and, real crafty with their feet. So obviously for me to play at that level and to play at that speed, I had to drop a few pounds. So that's exactly what I did. This one off season I was 315. I came back in the next off season at 290. And I felt great. Never looked back.
Justin, so when you look at a guy like Roquan Smith, you look at Nicholas Morrow, you look at their 40 times, how can a 3 technique defensive tackle, because, back in the day when I was playing, they always talk about the defensive tackle's got to protect the linebacker so the linebacker can run free. Now it seems like when you get a 3 technique defensive tackle, it's about penetration to disrupt the entire flow of the backfield. So how does 3 technique speed complement the speed of linebackers that can run as well as Roquan and Morrow?
Well, I'm taking the field with a bunch of dogs in the back end. So with that being said, you got to have a dog 3 technique too, just to match that speed and intensity that they play with. And for me, I feel like the style of play that this defense is that Coach Flus is trying to implement right now is going to be able to showcase everybody, not just them covering up me and me covering up the linebackers. Like we playing off each other, and that's what's most exciting about this defense, man. Like that's what's really most exciting. It gets to showcase everybody's ability and everybody's talent and their strong suit. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited for training camp.
Well, from that standpoint, how quickly, obviously new area, getting familiar with the city, the facilities, the people in the building, all that. I mean, it's important, too. I found when I switched teams to get in a routine, even in the off season, and just how familiar you can get with what's expected you, so you're just ready to go in training camp. I mean, how's that going for you right now as you're in phase 1 here for the Bears off season?
Well, right now, I'm still trying to, figure my way around, but, I've met some really good people. Some really good therapists. Our training staff at the Bears is a top tier, I feel like, and we've been all working together, just to make sure that, we all have our own special routine. Every player is different. Everybody is different. Every player has different needs that they need catered to. And, I do feel like, the Bears, since I've been here, have been doing that, catering to everything that I need, helping me out with things, that I've struggled with in the past and, just taking care of everything. So, with that being said, like I feel like it's just in general with the health of our team from what I've seen, like I'm really excited about that too.
You still challenge each other in the weight room? Like I know those guys we mentioned from NC State before, the Chubb, Hills, and Street, you guys pushed each other hard in the weight room. Is that going on right now?
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be a mentality. The only reason why we were allowed to do that when we was at NC State because all four of us seen the bigger picture. You feel me? So if we in the weight room together and we're all working out, man, if we got to know that these reps ain't just reps, they champ reps. You know what I'm saying? It's the reason why we doing that. It's the reason why we in the weight room pushing this weight, running as much as we do. You know what I'm saying? Because we trying to win something. We're not just playing just to play.
All right, last question. We'll let you go. We appreciate it once again for joining us here on Bears All Access. You're delightful, and good to catch up with you again. We met each other there on the TV set in the building, and you were wide-eyed about all the history of the team. I just got a simple question because I'm a short guy, right? I'm 5'7" and a half on a good day. Are you still too short to play defensive tackle?
No way.
Because the story goes, Georgia thought you were 2 inches too short. Clemson told everybody you were too short. You're 6'2" and a half and getting it done. So you're not too short, are you?
No, I'm not.
How did that rattle your cage a little bit back then, and does it still stick in the back of your mind?
No, I pretty much forgot about it, but at the time, it did add some motivation to the fire. And I knew that I wanted, to get back at Clemson for a while, man. We played some really tough, really hard games with them, man. Obviously, some games that we didn't finish, but they still knew who I was, when I came through there. As long as even with my other D linemen, they knew all our names, when we left that stadium, and that was the most that was good for me too.
Well, my favorite highlight of I think it was last year on your highlight reel was chopping down Matt Ryan. All of a sudden, he just goes down, and who's coming up at the bottom of the pile? Justin Jones. So we'll be looking forward to seeing that kind of penetration with the Bears here in 2022. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Justin Jones, our guest here on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. More ahead after a brief timeout with Tom Thayer, Jim Miller, Jeff Joniak. Stick around here on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Segment of Bears All Access is brought to you by CDW, people who get it. Jeff Joniak, Tom Thayer, and Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radios moving the chains as we bring you Bears All Access, a Monday night version. And be sure to check out the Miller Lite Bears Draft Party. It's back at Soldier Field this year with on-field access, locker room tours. There are going to be some players as well. A lot planned for that. Tickets on sale now at chicagobears.com/draft party. That'll be on the Friday of the draft, the second and third rounds. Welcome back to the program. Fellas, they're going to continue, like right now, as you look at the roster, Jim, I brought this up with Tommy, there are about 59 players right now, so you get to 90, so there's a lot of spots to be filled, but where they still have 3 deep right now at every defensive line position. So they got a bunch of guys right there, but they'll continue to look at that, as you said many times, that 3 technique. Justin is going to get a great shot at being the 3 technique, but they're probably going to look at that too for guys in the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, whatever is missed out, then you have another phase of free agency that is going to be after the draft. Say you miss out on a player, and you may be on the phone with the other agent prior to the draft, and then during the draft, hey, we missed out on our guy. We agreed to this number, and you're able to sign a free agent that is out there. There's still a lot of good players out there in the free agent market, and typically what happens is the phones are buzzing throughout the entire draft for that very reason, and then you're able to add players, or you go through your OTAs and leading up to your minicamp. Well, we think this player's technique. He's more of a developmental guy that maybe the Bears selected or signed as an undrafted free agent. We're probably going to need a veteran here, and then you go out and sign a guy as you start to get ready for prior to the last time you leave with your minicamp, prior to training camp. And you'll still sign free agents that way. And then, of course, there's injuries, during camp. And that may dictate, free agents that are brought in from that standpoint. So it's never ending. It's unceasing, the work that's going on. And these general managers are constantly in communication with these players to see if they're able to get a deal done, depending on the team's needs.
Tom, there are 8 corners on the roster right now and 3 safeties as we sit here right today, and so there are jobs to be won, and it depends on what they envision with some of these players. We're not entirely sure. Maybe somebody moves to safety in this bunch. Don't know. But let's talk about Thomas Graham, because he certainly made a big impact when he came in at the end of the season. Didn't get a chance to make any playing time until later in the year, and he turned a lot of heads. What did he do for you, and did he show you enough at the end of the season that you will consider him for a starting job at one of those corner spots?
You know, one of the things that I always think about when I think about Thomas Graham at the end of the season is in the Seattle game when he got beat for a touchdown, he didn't fold up his tent and then just sit on the sideline the rest of the game. He increased his performance and he played really well the rest of the game. And so I think Thomas Graham Jr. left a lasting impression on the fans and the incoming coaching staff, where they have to look at his reps on tape and they say, okay, he's a good tackler. He understands leverage. He understands his boundaries of a cornerback and how he needs to play him. And so I don't think that he shies away from the pressure of the position, but it's going to be about making sure that you come to camp day one in condition. You're going to have some ability to run beyond what you ever thought you had to run before. And Thomas Graham, like I said, it's an important role to be a good tackler in the NFL, and he showed that he's capable of that. So where he started the season, where he was at in the midpoint, when he was forced into that Minnesota game and how well he played, look, I need to see further evaluation if this guy can prove that he can or cannot play. Right now, from the end of the season, I think he can play.
Jim, you have thoughts on Thomas Graham?
Yeah, I think, he got into the one start. It was an opportunity, and he played well, so I think you acknowledge that, you evaluate it, and say, yeah, let's see where it goes with this young player. Like Tom said, he's now going to have the benefit of the offseason here. He's going to be stronger, hitting the weight room, understand what the everything that is entailed of what he has to do to prepare to play a game, to compete and prepare himself to be a starter. And that's the bottom line. You got to go out there and compete. Everybody's got a clean slate. This is a whole new coaching staff. Well, the sins of the past are gone. All he can do is control what he's going to do moving forward under this new evaluation process, because it's a new scheme and what the techniques that they're going to be asked to do in certain things. So, he deserves an opportunity here, and I think that's what he's going to get for the Chicago Bears.
All right, there's 6 linebackers right now, only 2 that were on the roster last season. Caleb Johnson was undrafted that showed a lot on special teams, dealt with an injury or two. Roquan, obviously, Nicholas Morrow, and Noah Dawkins with Joe Thomas, and Matt Adams, who was just added. That doesn't mean, again, because it was a 3-4, Sam Kamara was an outside linebacker, Travis Gibson, Jeremiah Tachu. Those guys are still on the roster. Tom, what's your evaluation of what is going to be added? Will they be looking in the draft for somebody that, we're talking about corners and receivers and 3 techniques and offensive linemen, and we're not really talking about the linebacker position in the draft, or people aren't talking about it. Are you thinking that in any way?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to. Is there someone that's going to fit into the linebacker position that may offer maybe a little less speed but more size to the linebacker position? In Roquan, he's not a small guy. Nicholas Morrow is not a big guy, but they both run equally as well. When we became familiar with this defense, this Tampa 2 style defense, we're looking at guys, like Urlacher and Lance Briggs. They're big guys. They have great instincts. They run well. Is that guy out there? Is there a guy that's going to come in and bring a little bit of that, size we see out of some linebackers around the league that offer you a little bit more impact at the point of attack? Is there a linebacker out there that offers you a little bit size that if they want the 3 technique defensive tackle to pressure immediately, and then you have an offensive lineman running free at you, are you quick enough to avoid him, but are you strong enough to take him on? And so I do think when you put all the pieces in place, new defensive coordinator Alan Williams, it's going to be about what type of size you want offered to you, at least in the middle of that linebacker position.
Yeah, Jim, I look at the 2006 Super Bowl team. Obviously, Urlacher, a beast and unique because he could run at 6'4", 258, and Briggs would get small the hole and set a new line of scrimmage with regularity. He just was able to get in that gap at 6'1", 244. Hunter Hillenmeyer was the strong side linebacker at 6'4", 238, and the backups, which were special teams guys, were on the 225 to 235 range. Guys, remember guys like Leon Joe and Darryl McClover and Rod Wilson. Now you got Roquan's listed officially at 232. I think he's probably a little heavier than that. But Caleb is 227. Dawkins 235. So, Jim, it's interesting because that's more what the NFL is going to at the linebacker position in a defense that is going to be fast and furious and try and get the football as many times as possible.
Well, yeah, because they got to play in space now with everything that they're doing with wide receiver screens and all that, and that seems to be the trend that's happening. But there's nothing wrong with big, strong, and fast. Urlacher was legit 265 as a safety, and there's nothing wrong with that. I keep on bringing the kid up from Montana State, who's really only a 2-year linebacker, but he ran the fastest 40. I'm talking about Anderson out there from Montana State. He had the fastest 3-cone. He had the fastest short shuttle of any linebacker in the draft. But you're right. When you think of guys like Nakobe Dean and the other linebackers, and Anderson, as I mentioned, he's legit 6'3", over 240 is what he played at. Okay? And these other linebackers that are coming out, the Georgia linebackers, they're more in that mode like what you're talking about, 230, playing space. The Utah linebackers is like that, and so that's just kind of the evolution of the game because you are having to play in space a lot more, and you need that speed in terms of the linebackers.
All right, Jim, we put an exclamation point on it. We're out of time. Thank you again. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, man.
That's Jim Miller from SiriusXM's Moving the Chains. That's Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak. Thanks to Justin Jones, and thanks to our producers tonight as well. We appreciate you, Tyler Buterbaugh and Katie Tuber. Thanks most of all for you for listening. That'll do it tonight for Bears All Access. Coming up next, Gabe Ramirez will entertain you this evening on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening to this Chicago Bears Network presentation of Bears All Access. Podcasts are available on chicagobears.com and on iTunes, or download the official Bears mobile app. Bears All Access has been brought to you by IGS Energy and sponsored by Miller Lite.